All right, all right. Today we got to talk about the news. You heard me. The news. We're going to talk about the news, more specifically, the rule changes that have been passed for the 2025 season, and also discuss the current quarterback situations of the Browns, the Steelers, and the Titans, because each team has something a little interesting going on for all of them in that department. But before we begin officially, hope you guys are having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shumake, and this is the Shumake Take. Hope you guys are doing well. Before we begin talking about their things, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Something that I haven't done in a while. I did it like in one or two videos more relatively recently, but I want to start bringing housekeeping back into the Shumake Take, because I think the cool thing about it is that, not only does this give the show more personality, I get to talk to you guys a little bit, right? Share some personal stuff and whatnot. It also helps me warm up my voice. So by the time that we're actually going to be talking about the real content and the real meat and potatoes of the show, if you will, my voice is ready to go, and it should make a better video and better content in general. So I'm going to be bringing back housekeeping more. And well, the first order of business in housekeeping is the Shumake Take. If you noticed in the title of the video, it's called Shumake Take News. So now I'm no longer going to be doing episode numbers. I've thought about it and I've decided, episode 38 was like a month and a half ago. I'm not going to do numbers anymore, because the thing is, I want to have the titles of my videos and the thumbnails and, of course, the videos themselves, right, be really focused on what the news and what the content of the video is about. And just putting that in the title and just calling it Shumake Take News works out perfectly, as we're going to be talking about the news every single week in the NFL, all the top stories and whatnot, and share it with you guys. So I feel like just Shumake Take News, and then here's the topics. I feel like it's more to the point, gets more people to get interested, because we're not focused on an episode number. And also the episode number thing, I feel like, let's say like this would be episode 39, right? You go to episode 39 and like next week, next week, it's going to be episode 40. Because this is episode 40 and this is the newer number and 39 is a older number, right? It kind of makes the video and the content feel a little older than it actually is. And I know like most people are not going to be talking about this stuff come next week, but at the same time, there's going to be some people that are talking about it, and there's also going to be some people that are going to be interested into hearing what I have to say and what other people have to say. So that also gives my videos and the content a little bit more of an evergreen feel, more than just like okay, this is episode 39, and after this week, it's kind of old, right? Because that's how news works in the main media world. Like, that's why it's called news, because it's new. It's all new stuff that you're learning about your community every single day. That's the idea. And the next day's worth of work is old. I don't want that to be the case, where you look at an episode number and see it as older and you don't watch it. Where you look at the video title and you see, oh, I'm talking about the rule changes that have passed. That'll be a discussion that's going to last for a long time. So there's a chance that it lasts longer and has a chance to grow even more than it would have putting a number/label on it. So all that rambling aside, we're going to the Shumake Take News, talking about the news. And so that's going to be the plan from now on. And other than that, one thing I want to talk about personally with you guys, because I mentioned I want to talk more about personal stuff with you. I decided after last week, I made time in my schedule to get back into walking. I used to walk every day for months. And when Predictions vs. Reality rolled around, I stopped doing it because I wanted more time to focus on Predictions versus Reality. But getting back into walking has really made me feel good. Like, I walked every day this week so far. I've walked every day last week, and I already feel more like, how do I describe it? Like, I don't want to say I have more energy per se, because I really don't, but I do feel better in a sense. Like, whether it's mentally because I feel more accomplished, or the fact that, I feel a little bit, I won't say I feel leaner, but feel a little bit looser, feel a little bit more fit, because I'm getting back into walking, getting back into jogging, right? I have a thing where I go about 2.5 miles every day. I go from my house. I have a public recreation center 2.5 miles away. I go down there. I jog around at one time, which is a mile around, and then go right back home. And it ends up being like 2.5 miles, about a 40-minute outing, which, by the way, if you guys aren't walking at least like 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day, please do it. You guys really need to. Like, walking does so much for your mental health, for your physical health, obviously, right? And you just get yourself, a nice, comfortable t-shirt like this, which I got yesterday. Feels really comfortable. Go get yourself a hat, some sunglasses, a good big bottle of ice cold water, and go strolling. Put some earbuds in and listen to some music, listen to a podcast, and just go to work. It feels so good after walking for a week. You feel better about yourself. It does so much for you. If you guys don't do it, you guys really should. So speaking from someone who didn't really exercise all that much for a while, and now that I've been exercising more overall throughout my life, this past year or two, I feel great. Like, I feel so much better now. Like, I used to be like 210 pounds, and now I sit at a solid 190. I'm currently right now like 187, and my goal ultimately is to get down to like 170. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but even if I get down to 180, that'd be awesome. So, again, please do it. Make some time to do it. It's really it is a lot easier than you think it is. It's just about taking that first step, and once you take that first step outside, it is smooth sailing from there, I promise you. But now, with all the housekeeping aside, let's actually get into the meat and potatoes of our content. First, talking about the rule changes that have been officially passed for the 2025 season. A couple of them have been tabled, which means that there's going to be another meeting in May, which they'll discuss it and vote on it again. Those I will not be discussing. The two that were banning the tush push, and then the thing the Lions proposed where the highest seed will get home playoff games, and it's not determined by division winners. I don't know why those got tabled. They're probably not going to get passed anyways. But let's talk about what actually got passed, starting with the overtime rule being passed, to where now every team or each team in overtime gets a chance to possess the ball. The original plan was for it to be a 15-minute overtime period. It will remain at a 10-minute overtime period, which I've seen people not very excited about. Me personally, I'll just have to wait and see. I've heard some people say, like, oh, the offenses are going to do the same thing where they're just going to run out the clock, and then leave no time for the other team to step foot on the field properly, and it's going to be decided by a coin flip, which is the entire purpose of adding this overtime rules to negate that. No, like I'm of the philosophy that if you're an NFL defense and in overtime, if you cannot get off the field off the offense, I have a lot of saliva forming in my mouth. Jesus, I want to say it. I don't want to spray it, but if you're a defense and you're in overtime and the offense is going on like a 5-minute plus long drive, just literally squeezing you dry like a lemon. What are you doing? Like, you deserve to lose at that point. Like, if you can't get off the field after half of the overtime period, you deserve to lose. Like, what are you doing? Just bow up and step up. That's all I'm going to say about that. But overall, for the overtime rule, this is a good change that needed to be made. Not because, like, it's not fair, right? Stuff like that. I just think it's going to be better for the game because guess what? It's more meaningful football to watch. We're going to see both teams really have a shot to go all out and lay it all out there and leave it all on the field, compared to going in overtime, team that gets the ball, scores the game-winning touchdown, and blah, and then that's it. No, we're going to see both teams really lay it all out there, go all out, maybe we'll see some really cool plays that are added on in there, right? Clock stuff, like, it's going to add so much more watchability and narratives and excitement to the game, I think, where it's going to be a regular season game where the game goes into like double or triple overtime, like in college, and it's just going back and forth. It's exciting, and it's a matter of who is going to make the stop first and who is ultimately going to make the bigger play to win the game. And I think that's going to be exciting. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm glad that it's going to be, I think it's a permanent change. I don't think it's a change that's like a 1 year, like one of the ones that we're going to talk about at the end. But it's a good move. I love the move. And so I'll be excited to see what happens in 2025 for that. The next one, penalties can be subjected to replay review. I pulled this description straight from Yahoo Sports. So I'm going to read it right here verbatim, and then I'll kind of summarize it and add a little bit more in the moment. But under the new policy, like plays like hits on a defenseless player, grabbing the face mask, performing a horse collar tackle, tripping and running or roughing the kicker, stuff like that can be reviewed. Excuse me. This proposal does come with a catch. Those penalties can only be reviewed if officials throw a flag on the play. If a coach believes the flag was not warranted, he can challenge and potentially have the penalty overturned. In cases where no flag is thrown by an official on a play, coaches will not be eligible to challenge. So if an official misses a penalty and does not throw a flag, it cannot be challenged. Replay review is obsolete at that point. So this one, okay, like it's a step in the right direction where, okay, the ref makes an egregious call, the coach can step up and say, hey, challenge this. Now, this could go one of two ways. Best case scenario, it is used properly and referees get held more accountable and calls that were egregious get fixed. Or worst case scenario, this could be a situation like after the 2018 NFC Championship game and the no call pass interference hit that happened against the Saints, and then the next season team coaches were able to challenge pass interference, and then coaches just abused the ever living crap out of it to the point where it slowed down games so much the NFL they took away the rule after one season. So I'm hoping that that's not the case where NFL coaches, every time a flag is thrown, they're like, that's not holding, that's not pass interference, that's not this, that's not that. I'm hoping that coaches don't try and take advantage of it and abuse it and try and challenge it like every time there's a penalty. If it's kept to like egregious penalties where coaches are like, okay, no, that's objectively wrong, challenge that, I think it would be great. But it's subjective to the coach, it's subjective to the referee that throws the flag, right? Like I said, if no flag is thrown, it can't be challenged. So that's going to cause issues, right? But the idea that it's a more comprehensive idea to add replay assist, to challenge penalties and correct egregious calls, I think it's a good idea. It's a step in the right direction. Is it the rule that is it like set where like everything is like figured out and fixed? No, not yet. We're gonna have to see like what this first year does, and then maybe they can add on more afterward and kind of refine it as the years go on. But the fact that this passed is good. I think it's really good, and it'll be interesting to see what happens during the season. I just hope it doesn't become a challenge, like it was in 2019 when you could challenge defensive pass interference and coaches just abused it. I just hope that, referees will be held more accountable. They will stop making these egregious calls, right? And also coaches will actually use it for when it is truly necessary. So that passed. It's good. Let's move on to the third one that got passed. Touchbacks will be moved to the 35-yard line. It used to be the 30. It is now being bumped up to the 35. This is to, in theory, encourage more returns. This one, I don't have an opinion on it yet. I have to see it in action. Because there's one side of me that's the negative side of me is like, oh yeah, they're just going to they kick it right into the end zone. They're just going to kneel down. You start at 35. Okay, 2 first downs and you're in field goal range. Whoop-de-doo. That's not good for defenses. But also you could look at it as, okay, you're trying to encourage more returns. And for kickers, now there is a real penalty to kicking it out of the end zone, where last year, okay, even though you went out to the 30, you can still kick it out of the end zone for a touchback, preventing a return, and your defense still has room to work with. Where at the 35-yard line, your defense has almost no room to work with. So kickers now are going to kind of really practice getting it in that landing zone that they've talked about, where it encourages more returns, and in turn will kind of develop the schematics and the chess match that the new kickoff has brought to the game. I used to hate it when it was first introduced because I was more of a traditionalist on the kickoff. But now, seeing it work in action and also seeing it work to my detriment as a Titans fan, watching how many times big returns happened on kickoffs and punt returns, more specifically kickoffs, that's what we're talking about here. That one, I've grown to like it a little bit more, and I can I can understand it now. How do I fully love it yet? No, right? I'm still kind of I like the old traditional kickoff, but I can understand what it brings and the purpose of it. And trying to encourage more returns and really kind of dive into the weeds a little bit more, I can respect it. I can get behind it. So that'll be interesting one to watch. But moving on to the last one, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers. I talked about this rule at the end of my rule change video, where teams are going to be allowed to negotiate with players and talk to them before they sign their contracts. Before, or as of right now, as it is, right? Well, I guess not anymore because the rule change is officially passed. We're in 2025 now for the season, right? It's the new league year. But before, teams could not negotiate with players for their contract or have them out for like a visit or anything. No, it was, oh, you want to sign this player? You got to contact. It all runs through their agent. Now, before, like during the negotiation period, teams can talk to players individually, bring them out to their facility, right? So I think this is going to be a good change. While it is a 1-year thing that's going to be revisited in 2026 and then be voted on again, but I think this will be good because not only will it help coaches and front offices with roster building, right, in terms of, learning about who you're getting as a player, as a person, right? But also I think it'll just be a more comprehensive process where, think about it. If you're like the owner or head coach, you're bringing in a new player, it's like, in a way, like if you're going into a new job, it's like it's a job interview, right? In the real world, like if you or me were to go for a new job, we have to sit down for an interview, talk with like a supervisor or a manager, and have them get to know us and our credentials, credibility, right? And, see in person, face to face, if this is a real candidate that we want to hire for our team, right? So in the football case, it now has the opportunity to be the same way, and I think it's going to be really good. I think it's going to not only, increase the possibility, it's going to help roster building for NFL teams and organizations, front offices, coaches, whatnot, but I think it's going to become a better, more thorough process where coaches and teams really, can get the players that they want and truly, get to know them and see if they really fit what you're looking for. And also for players, it also gets you exposure to your potential employers, like your coaches, right? Even potential teammates you might see in the building, and also guys in the front office. So it's a process that's going to help both parties, I think. And seeing it as a 1-year thing, I don't like that. I wish it was a more permanent change, but I can understand why, like, it's a 1-year thing because you have to change the rules about tampering and, what qualifies as tampering. Like that stuff is going to have to change. But I think just as a rule and allowing players and coaches and front offices to, kind of meet with each other during the negotiation period, I think that's great. I think it's great. And it's oh my God, I can't talk. It's successful for both parties. So all these move changes, I can get behind. It'll be interesting to see what happens with all of these as the year goes on and into the season. But now let's move on to the quarterback situations for the Browns, the Steelers, and then we'll cap off with the Titans. So for the Browns, while there's no quarterback situation in terms of the quarterback, owner of the Browns, Jimmy Haslam, has said some things about Deshaun Watson, the Browns quarterback, and all it's done is create a very interesting situation. So Jimmy Haslam earlier this week, I think it was he did an interview with ESPN. He said about Deshaun Watson that they, quote, took a big swing and missed with Deshaun. And he also said, quote, we thought we had the quarterback. We didn't. And we gave up a lot of draft picks to get him. So we've got to dig ourselves out of that hole, which is a trade. It was an entire organization decision, and it ends with D and I. D is Miss Haslam, his wife, co-owner of the Browns. So hold us accountable. For Jimmy Haslam, congratulations. By stating the obvious, you have now made yourself just like Joe Douglas, former Jets GM, like I talked about last offseason, and Jerry Jones, like I talked about last offseason with CeeDee Lamb's holdout. You stating what you said, you have now made yourself a moron. Congratulations for saying something that everybody understands. You're not the person that needs to be saying that. You're the owner of the football team. And here's the thing. Deshaun Watson is set to make over $40 million against the cap this year. And in 2026, he's set to have an $81 million cap hit, which is going to be restructured and pushed back down the road. But even if you cut him after 2026 and you were somehow able to eat the $81 million in cap space, which is not going to happen, you would still have a dead cap over $50 million, which, of those of you that don't know what a dead cap is, so in the NFL, you have your contracts, right? Let's say a player is getting paid $10 million a year for 5 years. And so the cap hit is like $5 million, $6 million, $7 million, and, year 1, year 2, year 3, and let's say you want to cut them after year 3 and a 5-year deal. Well, you still owe that money for the next 2 years to that player, if that makes sense, right? So dead cap is money you owe to a player that's not on your team anymore. So $50 million in dead cap, which it's a similar number. The official number is similar to what the dead cap that Russell Wilson gave the Broncos when the Broncos cut him last year, or technically 2 years ago now. Wow, that's crazy. But either way, I mean, he's going to be on this team for a while because of the financial commitment they made to Deshaun Watson. And unless you're going to cut him sooner and really, really run your team into the ground, well, now you openly said that your quarterback that's still on your roster, you brought him in, gave him all the money, traded for him, was a mistake. If he ever gets healthy, I already said this after he retore his Achilles, he's never starting for the Browns again. He's never playing for the Browns again. It's never going to happen. Because now at that point, the physical part of the game, that was already running thin, right? It's hard to come back from not only tearing your Achilles, but coming back after re-rupturing it, right? That's already a tough thing to come back from. But now if you're Deshaun Watson in this instance, now you're the owner of the team is telling you that bringing you in here to Cleveland was a mistake. Why would you ever play for the Browns again? Why would you ever play for him again after making those comments? The thing with why it makes Jimmy Haslam such a moron is because you praise in public, you criticize in private. And saying stuff like that, not only is it unprofessional, it's completely unnecessary. And this is not going to look good for players in the locker room. Because now there's a precedent set that the guy at the top can say whatever he wants and get away with it. And the thing is, players, while I'm not going to speak on how much they believe in Deshaun Watson, how much they back him, right? I'm not a Browns fan, so I wouldn't know. But at the same time, I do have an understanding that players, even if they get at each other's heads, right, they may not like each other very much, they're still players. They're still both NFL players. And with that, they share that common finality or that common trait, and they have each other's back because of it more often than not. So I cannot see this being a positive look for the rest of the locker room, especially after, you gave Myles Garrett that big contract, and now you're saying that, and then now the quarterback that's in that locker room is going to talk about how much he disdains the owner for what he said and what he did, and all it's going to do is create problems. There is no benefit for Jimmy Haslam to saying what he said. There is literally zero benefit, all negative consequences for him, which is why I'm calling him a moron. But for the Browns, as an organization, this changes nothing. I still think they need to draft a quarterback. I think they still need to draft Shedeur Sanders second overall, the quarterback out of Colorado, which is why I had him going second in my mock draft, which if you guys haven't checked that out, go check it out. It's my 1.0 mock draft, so it's very raw, but it was a good one overall, I would say, for the most part, and 2.0, which will drop out next week, will be a lot better. But enough of the Browns. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers and their quarterback situation, because now they are trying to play it cool there, but they're running out of time. They're straight up running out of time. So all this stuff has really resurfaced because earlier in the week, a video surfaced of Aaron Rodgers throwing passes and working out with DK Metcalf, who was just traded to the Steelers about a month ago. The thing is, Aaron Rodgers hasn't said anything, right? And the Steelers aren't really budging either. It seems like they're trying to play it cool, trying to play it methodical. And then I've heard somewhere, I think it was the host of Locked On Steelers, if you know about the Locked On Podcast Network, the host of the Locked On Steelers podcast talked about how Mike Tomlin hasn't really thought about getting the quarterback situation settled before the draft. The thing is, they're a cool, methodical thing, and then Tomlin's alleged comments, it's not fooling anybody. Simply put, it is Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers are Aaron Rodgers' last place to play, right, and start. And for the Steelers, this is their last veteran quarterback option to actually give them solid quarterback play in 2025. Like, for these two teams, they're each other's last thing. Like at this point, it's like, I watched on Locked On NFL, and they had the analogy of, it's the last two people at a bar. And, it's like they're not really making a move, they're not really talking, right? But at the same time, like, someone who, the bartender, right, us, is looking at them and saying, either you're going home together or you're not. make up your minds and just make the move and get it figured out. Now, I can understand there's certain reasons why they're not trying to make any moves or anything. I mean, there's, you never want to act like on impulse and act with, act too quickly, right? You don't want to do that. But the Steelers are getting to a point where they need to have something figured out if Aaron Rodgers is going to play for them or not, because that's going to affect what they do in the draft. I had them drafting Jackson Dart at 21st in my mock draft. And does that change if Aaron Rodgers comes to the Steelers? I wouldn't say it does, definitely, but it does influence what can happen, because if you think that you can get a quarterback later in the draft, like with your late second round pick or later on, or you think you can probably get one in 2026 and you don't have to get one in 2025, Aaron Rodgers gives you that flexibility. Maybe you use your first round pick on maybe running back. I've seen people throwing around. I doubt it, but that's possible, right? Maybe you draft Amari and Hampton to replace Najee Harris. That's a possible. I could be behind that. That'd be interesting. But other stuff like maybe adding a slot receiver potentially, I doubt it, because they have Roman Wilson coming back from injury, and with already paying DK Metcalf and George Pickens, maybe they do, because George Pickens is on last year of his contract. Maybe that's a slot for maybe like a Luther Burden or Emeka Egbuka or Matthew Golden if he doesn't, if he falls to that point, right? So those are possibilities. And then maybe on the defense, maybe you add another defensive tackle, a middle linebacker. Maybe you draft Jahad Campbell, right? That's a possibility. So, I mean, with Aaron Rodgers, you have a lot more possibilities to, what you could do with your first round pick compared to what if you get to a week before the draft and you don't have Aaron Rodgers signed and he decides that, okay, I'm done. I'm going to retire. I'm going to Cancun. Now you're screwed, because now your two quarterbacks, or your only quarterback, is Mason Rudolph, and that's not going to work. So now you're going to be probably forced to draft a quarterback with your first round pick. And if you draft a quarterback like Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers, Jalen Milroe, Will Howard in the first round, even at 21st, that is a massive, horrendously massive reach, in my opinion. But the Steelers are almost getting themselves to a spot where they have no choice. And Mike Tomlin, he's talked about in the past in other conferences unrelated that he doesn't like putting deadlines on things because it allows people to work at their best. The thing is, deadlines are important, guys. I mean, I don't need to explain too much about why deadlines are important. Obviously, it teaches you time management. It teaches you how to pace yourself properly, right? And also, it creates a sense of urgency, which the NFL is all about, having a sense of urgency, whether it's, building your roster, getting the right draft, going to players on the field. Your coaches talk about all the time having a sense of urgency to get down the field, score, and do your job, right? So in this situation where you're trying to play it cool and play it methodical and not really push anything, you're running out of time. And if you get to a point where Aaron Rodgers decides to retire, and at this point, you got to draft a quarterback in the first round, you're screwed, right? You're going to be screwed. And for the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers, looking at the video of Aaron Rodgers showing to DK Metcalf, that's not a guy that looks like he wants to retire. So at this point, going back to the analogy of the two people at a bar, the last two people at the bar, just go home together. Just make it happen at this point. There's literally no significant difference in getting that contract signed tomorrow compared to in a couple of weeks before the draft. So get it done. And knowing my luck, I said this, and Aaron Rodgers is going to be signed to the Steelers tomorrow. So here's the hoping that doesn't happen, but who knows? We will see. But that is enough for the Steelers situation and giving my thoughts on that. Now we'll cap off with the Tennessee Titans, where the Titans president of football operations, his name is Chad Brinker, he came out at the owners meeting. Excuse me, my throat's getting dry. And he said that the Titans are not going to trade Will Levis. They're not going to cut Will Levis, nor have they called anybody to inquire about Will Levis and a potential trade. He has said and reaffirmed that Will Levis is going to compete for the starting job and be in training camp for the Tennessee Titans for 2025. And while the more I think about it, I can get why they're not sending him away now, because you don't want to send away Will Levis and then, God forbid, something happens to Cam Ward and boom, now you have no quarterback. So now keeping Will Levis around makes sense, because if something were to happen with Cam Ward, okay, at least you can roll with Will Levis, who has been working really hard to get better. I'm not going to take that away from him. And as a guy who, while I've been out on Will Levis, I still want the guy to succeed, right? I like him as a person. He's got all the talent. So, I mean, I'm not, compared to Brandon Allen, who is the current, was projected to be the Titans' backup quarterback, who they signed from San Francisco, I personally would feel better rolling with Will Levis in 2025 than Brandon Allen if Cam Ward is not the pick. But the thing is, Cam Ward is the pick, which will tell me that I will say this right now, Will Levis will not be on the team come week 1. While I can get why you want him to be in training camp, to give him the opportunity to work, right, and really compete. The thing is, Cam Ward, if he's going to be drafted, he's going to be the starter. But keeping Will Levis in there, in that locker room, has the potential to create an awkward situation, especially if Cam Ward struggles, which I will tell you right now, you heard it here first, Titans fans out there, and any other NFL fan, you heard it here first, Cam Ward is going to struggle as a rookie, but that's a different video for a later date once Cam Ward is drafted. But either way, that could potentially create a wedge in the locker room, and Ryan Callahan gets fired because the locker room is, all out of whack, they're losing games, and then all of a sudden, Cam Ward's development is screwed, and the chances of him being successful are immediately cut to a much lower chance, because whoop-de-doo, wow, a quarterback doesn't succeed when their coach gets fired in their first year and they have to learn a whole new offensive system, like almost every single young quarterback drafted in the top 5 over the past 5 or 6 years. So congratulations, Titans. You keep Will Levis on the roster come week 1, that will probably happen. So I don't think that'll happen. I will say definitely that won't happen, because I'm sure they're aware of what that will imply and what implications that could bring. But I will say right now, that's not going to happen. Keeping him around, I can understand more as I've thought about it and given it time and patience. But this is a very interesting situation. I know some Titans fans are up in arms about it, right? But a lot of Titans fans are like that. They're very reactionary, and a lot of them, a lot of us Titans fans get upset about any little thing, right? I saw people arguing on social media, because the Titans are not wearing their uniforms, the Oilers throwback uniforms in 2025. And to me, I like them, I love them, I want to see them. But you know what? Fine. The uniform thing does not change anything about me wanting to watch the team, follow them. The uniform, okay, it looks cool. We're not going to see it. Okay, fine. We got blown out twice by the Texans at home in 2 back-to-back years about it. I'm good, right? We're fine here. So that is that. But if he is there in Tennessee week 1, it'll be a disaster. But I don't envision that happening. But I guess for all of these moves and what the final verdict will be, whether it's what's Deshaun Watson going to do once he's healthy in Cleveland, will he play for the Browns again? I doubt it. But will the Steelers get Aaron Rodgers? Will they finally just go home together and leave the bar? And will the Titans, when will they get rid of Will Levis? So all these storylines will be something to follow and revisit as, more things happen, which you guys will be here and update it. And if you guys want to see my updates on these topics as they come out and get changed, please consider hitting the like button and the subscribe button, as it helps the channel out tremendously as we try to hit 100 subscribers before the NFL season starts. I didn't even say that's going to do it for me. I just kind of went right into the closer and seamlessly did it. I just realized that. But either way, that will do it for me for this video. But like I said, if you guys are new around here on the channel, you like the content, and you guys want to see my updates on these topics as they happen, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Become a fan of the Shumake Take today. It is free. It only takes a couple of seconds. And if it's free, it's for me. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on the rule changes that have been passed. And do you think they're good? Do you think they're bad? And also, let me know about what you think about these quarterback situations for these teams, and what you think will ultimately happen with each one. Lastly, make sure you guys share the video, whether it's by word of mouth or by social media, getting everybody locked in and locked on to the Shumake Take podcast, coming out with great content for you guys every single week. But for now, that's going to do it for me. And until next time, and until then, as always, I will see you all next time.